and welcome. I'm so privileged and thankful to the Rutgers School of Social Work, their summer series event, for hosting this afternoon's event. So today we are going to take a personal journey exploring all our given and our chosen and core attributes that are unique to each and every one of us. And then we're going to plan out some self-care techniques that align with your remarkable life and the surroundings that you live in, because each one of you are special and unique only to you. In addition, I have a wonderful research to share with you on how to cultivate happiness, which is really a precursor for success. So we'll explore how you can achieve, sustain, and cultivate positive emotions that lead to healthy lifestyles and behaviors while building up our defense mechanisms when faced with any type of adversity that comes our way. So here this afternoon, I just want to start off with telling you my intention and also putting it into like a kinesthetic practice of offering you a brief guided meditation. I like to begin this way, and I hope that you too, this speaks to your heart, this speaks to something that you are used to, or if not, I hope you're open to receiving it. But first, my intention and your attention, let's just set some agenda for ourselves privately. And when we want to set an intention, what we want to do is we want to bring awareness to a specific quality or a virtue that we want to cultivate more of. Sometimes perhaps you want to invite more compassion into your life, or kindness, or gratitude, grace or forgiveness, or even love. So you set the intention that you'd like. Maybe you want to be more present or mindful, or become better at letting go. So let's just take less than a minute to set our intention for this afternoon. And I will offer a guided meditation, and it's titled Inner Smile Meditation. So what we want to do right now, if you can all join me, please, just to sit in a normal meditative position. Plant your 2 feet on the floor. If you're sitting on a chair with your feet on the floor, cross-leg on a couch or a bed, just be as comfortable as possible. Ensure your back is erect and straight. Have one vertebrae stacked on top of each other. And let's just take a deep breath in through our nose and exhale through our mouths. And let's relax our shoulders and keeping the head evenly balanced, just tucking your chin slightly inwards. Close your eyes and just let your tongue touch the top of your palate and relax your face. Now you start off by relaxing your face, and in doing this, just loosening your jaw muscles, your cheeks, your chin, your lips, and your eyes, even your ears. Just feel your entire face becoming calm and relaxed. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Now turn the corners of your mouth upward in a slow, gentle smile. And breathe in and exhale. And focus on the feelings inside as you start to smile. This always moves attention away from any thoughts that may come to trouble us. Breathe in and breathe out. We were looking to make a connection from our internal smile to an external smile. So we're going to know kinesthetically what it feels like throughout our body when we do smile and radiate that sign to others. Okay. All right. So now let's reopen our eyes. Let's exhale. And let's just, let me set an intention for you. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you be at peace and ease. Okay. Welcome back. All right. So I just want to know if you would put in the chat, has anyone ever practiced or hosted a guided meditation with any of your consumers or on yourself? Just, I find it a great way to get centered before I do any presentations or do any teaching. And I hope there was a takeaway from this little mini guided one that I enjoy doing, my inner smile and my outer smile. But as clinical practitioners, a large part of our time is spent with consumers, and we provide a lot of biopsychosocial educational interactions with them. So with that, we're looking to build rapport. So with that, if you'd like to practice doing any type of guided meditation with them, highly recommend find something that speaks to you and that authenticity comes through when you share it with them. So now as we sit back, I just want to ask everyone how you're feeling today. It's such a common question we ask ourselves, and unfortunately, we do not answer it honestly most of the time. For some of us, our days are fine, right? Our days are great. And for others, we're just trying to survive, just get through it. Research has proven that even if we try to focus on positive experiences throughout our day, negative memories still remain more prominent than positive ones in our brain. And for that example, I want you to reflect back on a day you recently had when it was probably an okay day overall. But the one picture in your day, there was one little issue that might have stood out in a negative light. Maybe when you were driving or traveling, somebody cut you off, somebody looked at you the wrong way, somebody bumped into you, someone was rude to you. And I want you to ask, well, why is it that when one small issue happens that we look back on a full 24 hours and we define the entire day or week as negative based on this encounter that might have occurred for maybe just a minute or two? This is what happens in our brain. A negative experience has such a strong impact that it remains more prominent in the forefront of our mind longer than a positive experience. So knowing that, how do we then practice focusing on all the positives that happen while suppressing those negatives? It's a challenge. It is. So today I want to choose to talk about how we can achieve, sustain, and cultivate positive emotions in our lives while noting that each of us has our own unique identity and defining attributes that we are either given through birth, through environment, or chosen by us. So some of these defining attributes that I just mentioned include our socioeconomic class, our citizenship, our ability, age, ethnicity, sexual orientation, cis, trans status, gender, and even spiritual practices. And all these attributes show us and interpret how we see the world around us. And it's actually also how the world sees and interprets us. So we need to take a moment to reflect on our own attributes, and it's akin to exploring our positionality and our social identity. As clinicians, I often research evidence-based practice tools that I can then offer to my consumers as a visual additive in their own self-exploration. And one tool that I'd like to offer you today is one of the social identity map. We have so many layers of complexity involved in our positionality, noting that our identities develop and change over time as we consistently shift in time and place. Now, for example, this meditative practice that we just did, the mini meditation, that's provided to everyone. Yet we all have varying outcomes based on our own positionality. Some of us may have embraced this mini smile meditation, and others may have just been like, Mary Beth, that's not for me. I've never done it and don't want to do it again. So offering one strength-based practice to so many does not always guarantee it's going to be received and experienced in the same venue. So in order to do that, I need to start off with introducing a tool that will explore our own social identity, which becomes a foundational layer when exploring our positionality. And that's what comes from finding, the self in our self-care. So first we have to map out our identity by our own unique and given and chosen characteristics and factors. For the example in this social identity map, If you look inside, the first tier asks us to identify the broader facets of our social identity, such as our own, again, given, our our class, our citizenship, our ability, our age, our race, sexual orientation, cis, trans status, and gender. These are issues that are given to us, and this really will help us center in on who we are. Then when we go a step further into the second tier, looking at our social identity, we want to go beyond these groupings and identify how these positions impact our lives. We have to recognize how our social identities affect our lives, and that's the first step in developing our recognition of and reflection on how our social identities impact our responses, behaviors, thoughts, and actions. So we have to take a closer look. And in the third tier, it asks us to reflect further and go into even more detail to identify emotions that may be tied to the details of our own social identity, which may include elements of what we sense or feel because of our social identity or position. I have a quick blurb from one of the research articles I brought into today's presentation, and you can read it on your own, but it really highlights some the researchers' positionality and social identity and how innate and ingrown they've embedded a fear just from being from their gender a woman in a brought up in a certain way to view the world in a certain way based on fear and trauma. So once we reflect on these social identities, we are now able to take a step back and look at our social identity map and ask ourselves, how do all these facets that we fill in our own way of my identity, in combination with the aspects of our behaviors, thoughts, and actions and our feelings, how is that going to impact the way I approach or interact or interpret any encounter I have in my life? How do these facets impact how I understand and interact individuals in my social sphere? It's a big question, and so this is something that is fluid and linear. We will always go through an exploration in our social identity and our positionality. But once we just start to have this conversation and we can get a greater understanding of our identity socially and individually, these apparent and hidden identities we embody will start to emerge into our consciousness. And then once it comes into our consciousness, we can bring ourself into our self-care practices. So having this acute awareness of all of the assumptions that we were raised with, that again, were given to us or chosen by us, and all these biases that were given to us and chosen by us, we now have a tool that helps extract these abstract, fluid, and ever-changing parts of ourselves, but also reminds us that positive growth and change are constant and attainable every single day. So using this type of tool, this social identity map, is just one example of how you can begin to explore the unique you that is yourself. And you can even share in the chat if anyone here has used tools like this as a means to map out their positionality. I have in the PDF PowerPoint all the different resources, so you'll have copies of these maps and blank tools so you can work on them with yourself and also your consumers. But please put it in the chat if you've ever explored your social identity and positionality, because it's key. We're all experiencing things from different lenses, and this is the one way that we can really get down to who we are and what really works for us. But one core thing that everybody wants is happiness, right? Happiness and joy. It's a fundamental human emotion. Happiness ranks high in our personal and professional world. We have to, though, recall all those historic words like from the Declaration of Independence, the pursuit of happiness. And in 2002, the World Happiness Report came out. It's a statistical analysis to determine the world's happiest countries. That was started over 20 years ago. So let me ask you this question about historical people pursuing happiness. Currently now, 2023, we're pursuing happiness, but actually, brought you back to the Declaration of Independence. And before that, what's missing from our lives? Why are we still on this quest? And that's what I want everyone to think and consider right now. I stumbled across some research I'm really excited to share with you today. It's from Dr. Robert Lustig. He's an American pediatric endocrinologist, and he's a professor emeritus and pediatrics in the Division of Endocrinology at the University of California over in San Francisco. And he specializes in
left to right.
oh, can you mute, please? Thank you. Thank you if you can mute. And he specializes in neuroendocrinology and childhood obesity. So with this big medical background, how are we linking this to happiness? Because he explored the phenomenon of happiness and how it affects our brain. So we can agree that we're searching for positive emotions, right? And I'm here to talk to you about two distinct positive emotions that typically have been intentionally conflated and combined, not for attaining happiness, but for the grounds to maintain actually addictive behaviors. Just put a pin in that. The two very poignant and often conflated emotions are pleasure and happiness. Think about it, pleasure and happiness. We often, again, bring them in together. They should be the same thing, but neurologically, they are not the same thing. Pleasure is an emotion we experience when something feels good, right? It's exciting, it's stimulating, and it promotes our neurons to release something called dopamine. So pleasure begets more pleasure. And as one pursues the previous euphoria of the other pleasure, they soon find out that they require a stronger means to achieve the prior level of satisfaction. So what does that sound like when you have a level that you want to achieve and then you want to go back and achieve it again, but you have to get more in order to get that previous sustained level? So my social workers are saying addiction. Yes, that's exactly what it's referencing. So pleasure and dopamine is all intertwined with addiction. This long-term effect of chasing pleasure, it does evolve into addiction and substances, controlled, prescribed, like food, behaviors, sex, shopping. What else can you think of? Something that's just addictive, on the phone, social media, just wanting to know what's there. You just have to keep going back and going back and going back again. These pleasurable behaviors and pleasurable substances are all around us, so what are we to do? But I want you now just to take a step back and separate out pleasure and happiness and do not have them remain conflated, because if we understand that pleasure-seeking behaviors do not result in attaining happiness, we will become better equipped on how to distinguish between the two. And I'm going to go into detail about the difference between pleasure and happiness. And in Dr. Lustig's research, he gives us 7 examples of the opposing experiences of pleasure and happiness. And I just want to go through them one by one. So first off, pleasure is short-lived. Think about pleasurable experiences you've had, like riding a roller coaster ride. It's excitement at the moment, like shopping, making that purchase. If you're going out and you're having different addictive substances, anything that gives you a rush is pleasurable, right? It's that rush that you've experienced at that roller coaster, or you want to recapture that high. How do you get that sensation again? You have to go back and do it again and again on an even more exciting level. We'll stick with the roller coaster. The one that gave you that first rush is not going to give you the same one the second time. So you have to go to a larger, bigger, faster, more scarier one in order to get a higher feeling from it. And your body then builds up a tolerance to what you've just experienced. And that's what happens when you start to pursue something that's faster or more daring or drastic. Just to achieve that first experience of pleasure, you're going into addiction. So I want you to hold that thought, because now when you go into happiness, it's long-term. If pleasure is short-term, as I mentioned, it only lasts for a short period of time. Genuine happiness is long-term. Happiness is a state of well-being. It's something that's built and resonates often individual, and it remains with you. Once you experience a state of happiness, it's possible to return to that same state through the same experience. So if you found happiness in just being with certain people at a certain time, every time you go back to be in their company, that happiness returns. You don't have to go and seek more and more through
I just pulled it
pleasure.
up too. I forgot it was there.
Hi, can you unmute yourself, please? We had some people come in. Thank you. So the second area is that pleasure is visceral. So pleasure is something that is experienced physically only, like through an action or through body or through some sort of achievement. And pleasure begets more pleasure. To achieve the first high of pleasure, you need to attain the same greater momentum than the last. It's a live experience. You have to physically be involved. It's visceral. You have to, again, feel it with your senses to go through it. Sex, shopping, substances, physical body, mind, anything. It's visceral. But yet, happiness is ethereal. We could all make a purchase, if it was something that was visceral, we would be able to purchase it and hold it, happiness. But that's not it. It's an out-of-body sensation. It's a different type of euphoria that you have to achieve emotionally. And if people were able to hold on to it like they can with pleasure, we wouldn't still be on that quest. We would all have it. There would be a monetary value placed on it, and we would be able to physically label it. So happiness is ethereal. It's a cognitive ability that we have to train ourselves to do. And that's why this is very key in first finding out how we can then separate the two between pleasure and happiness. The third key to pleasure is taking. So think about it. You're taking something and putting it in your body or on your body or around you. It's something that you've gotten and it's in your possession. And again, pleasure is taking. You need to put something on you physically to have it or in you. Happiness actually comes through giving. That old saying, the gift is in the giving, or you might even heard the joy one feels in giving rather than receiving. This is where these sayings come from. Giving and happiness are tied together. And to achieve happiness, you must start giving. The fourth is a pleasure is achieved with substances. Now I'm touching onto that addiction piece again, going back to being visceral, physical, going back to taking. It is achieved with substances, and you must take it to experience pleasure. Addiction is grounded in pleasure-seeking behaviors, and the repeated act of requiring this increasingly to get the prior result is the definition of addiction. So the more that you want a pleasure with substances, the more you have to put in and around on your body. But it's interesting, happiness is not achieved through substances. Think of an individual who's sober, existing on the bare minimums that life can offer. They have their basic needs met, and they may report that they are the happiest people on earth. They don't require physical or tactile substances to maintain their happiness. Again, it's an ethereal state of being. And the fifth, pleasure is also experienced alone. Think about that. You can eat alone. You can get high alone. You don't need people around you to get the pleasure you're looking for. You could be on your cell phone alone. You're connecting with something, but it's still a mechanism you're connecting with. There's no person there with you. It's an external satisfaction that you're feeling right now, and it does not require people or a community. But yet happiness is connection, with people. And I'll expand a little bit more about the different connections of happiness right after this. Dr. Lustig jumps into the 4 C's, and happiness and connection go really hand in hand. But now jumping to the 6th, this is interesting because the extremes of pleasure do lead to addiction. You must pursue pleasurable behavior over and over to experience the earlier emotion. But yet, with happiness, one can never get addicted to it. It's not addictive. Like, your body doesn't crave it. It may desire it. It may want to achieve it, but there's no biological, neurological, or physiological addictive means to happiness. You may ethereally feel something, inside your mind, but your body still exists as it goes, with or without. So that's something to keep in mind. And the last one that is quite profound is that seeking pleasure, your body creates dopamine. Now, dopamine is a pleasure-seeking neuron. It's a part of the brain's reward and pleasure centers. It starts the action and motivates us to work hard and achieve the same or similar satisfaction of reaching a goal. It has positive attributes, and it is prescribed for individuals who are experiencing a number of different social and emotional psychological disorders, but it also has negative qualities. When you have too much dopamine, when your body is overstimulated or it's mass produced over and over, it kills off your neurons, thus leaving your body in a state of addiction and craving the same response. So the more dopamine you create, the more it kills off the other neurons. It doesn't stay sustained. You have to keep building up that same level of threshold each and every time. And there's this addiction and this craving still goes on, and there's nothing there to get you through it, but then replacing it with more dopamine. But interestingly enough, for happiness, when you're feeling happiness, you release serotonin. And serotonin has long-term effects. Individuals with elevated serotonin levels are naturally peaceful, they're naturally calm, they're clear-minded, and they are socially dominant, they found. They have these, when people have a serotonin deficiency, so when they are lacking in serotonin, it makes people anxious, depressed, aggressive, lower self-esteem, and it results in a somber mood. So with serotonin, the more you produce through happiness, the more you retain it. But it's so interesting. The one thing that can destroy the serotonin level that you have built up and manufactured healthfully in your life is dopamine. Dopamine, it's so ironic. Dopamine destroys your serotonin. So what that means is if you're striving to achieve more happiness, and as you work hard to build up those serotonin levels, through mindful, holistic practices, from giving, from being ethereal, from being in community with others. Yet, when you are still at the same time engaging in pleasurable activities that increase your dopamine, the dopamine is destroying all the hard work you've put into building up that serotonin. So while research has uncovered that while partaking in all these pleasure-seeking dopamine-driven behaviors, your dopamines are destroying the serotonin that you've cultivated. So in the end, our pursuit for happiness, ironically, continues to be because people keep conflating happiness and pleasure. When you do it simultaneously, you're not building up your serotonin, thus keeping the dopamine going, thus never achieving the happiness. So this takeaway is the more pleasure-seeking dopamine behaviors you take part in, they actually destroy your serotonin and the practices that you're trying to implement, and thus supporting this constant pursuit of happiness cycle. And, that's why I'm spending time on this today. Awareness is key. I just think this is so clear-cut research that I need to share this with so many people, because when we conflate the two, we're really passing on the wrong information and we're stuck in a vicious cycle. So I want to go back to Dr. Lustig and how do we build up more of these serotonin levels? How do we look to achieving this happiness? And he came up with 4 examples, the 4 C's he calls it, on what we can do. So in the 5th step, when we talked about happiness is connection, how do we attain happiness? We expand these principles, and the first thing is to connect. Now, it's in interpersonal connection that I mentioned before that you can build up your serotonin and find the happiness. For pleasure-seeking behaviors, they seek pleasure on their own. But when it comes to being happy, think about it. It's cultivated through interpersonal connection. It's a physical presence with others. It's face-to-face, or Zoom to Zoom right now. It's one-on-one. It's reading all our nonverbal body language, which builds up our empathy and really highlights other means of resonating our authentic emotions with each other. We as professionals, we're trained to engage. We're trained to bring out our authentic selves into the professional relationship. So when we make that interpersonal connection, it activates our serotonin and it triggers our neurons and receptors. So the work that you're doing as social workers is building up your reserves of serotonin, whether you know it or not. The more effort and the authentic nature of you in engaging with people, it builds it up your reserve inside. It plays a vital role in our positive moods, and it's secreted when we feel significant. And during isolation or when we're in states of sadness, our serotonin levels get lower. But we build up our serotonin reserve when we keep connecting with others. So whether we connect with other people, we connect with pets, nature, spiritually, it's that act of connection that stimulates our serotonin. So some may argue, like through social media, you say, look, I'm connecting. Mary Beth, isn't this connection? But I want to ask you, is it really? If this is connection, then why during COVID, when everybody was using this and staying away from each other, why it did all the accounts of depression increase, especially during the pandemic? Why are so many people finding themselves depressed and distant, even though they were still engaged through social media? Because this isn't connection. This is just another means of pleasure-seeking behavior. The second C that he talks about is to contribute. And this is to contribute something outside of yourself. Again, social work, we're engaged in service. We practice to provide, to give, to contribute. But we also, one thing I want to bring up is that as social workers, we need to allow people to give us something too. As I mentioned earlier, the gift is in the giving, right? People love to give, and we're in a profession and our lives, we're givers. But when someone offers you something, it doesn't matter what present or task you're receiving. What matters is that the person is contributing to you. They are striving to increase their serotonin. So it's the other person who needs to share whatever they have as, an act or participation or a contribution is what matters. And that's where the gift is. So really allowing someone to contribute something to you, for you, or supportive of you. I was once told not to block someone's blessing. Somebody wants to give you something, let them give it, because they are looking to increase their own serotonin. They are looking to contribute. As minuscule or as grand as it may be, it's in the action. So let people contribute to a family. Let them contribute to a job, contribute somewhere in the micro, meso, or macro realm with volunteering or service or philanthropy. The key is just to do something outside of yourself. And that's where happiness lies. So building up a way to keep contributing is really a great way to help build up that serotonin. The third C is to cope. So we always look towards coping mechanisms to reduce stress. As I mentioned, we started off with a little mindful activity. But I want to ask you, how do you cope? As we reduce our own stress, we're looking to increase our serotonin, but coping is allowing our bodies to rest. And how we let our bodies rest and relax is number one, sleep. Our serotonin will increase if we get a good night's sleep. It can be that simple. And it's interesting because what's been found through research is that what has impeded our sleep over the past, I'd say 13 years, are these items. We turn to cope, right, to electronic devices and cell phones, computers, social medias, alerts, pleasurable habits. These habits all hinder our sleep. Think about it. How many of you actually keep this by your bedside or like respond every time it pings or vibrates? We're training ourselves to take away from our own etherealness and go right to something that's pleasure seeking. Our body needs to rebuild and regenerate these serotonin neurons. So the one thing is to train ourselves to not rely so much on this. Another coping mechanism that increases the serotonin is our exposure to bright light. For example, those who suffer from seasonal affect disorder, SAD, that exposure to bright light helps counterbalance the effects of depression. And the third strategy for coping is exercise, and that improves the mood by releasing endorphins linked to increasing serotonin. So it's these natural phenomena: sleep, light, exercise. It's there in front of us. But how are we not including that in our lives consciously? Something to think about. Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead too far. The fourth C is now cook. Yes, it's something so simple as cooking, but it truly, truly, truly has so many layers to it. Think about it. It's interpersonal. You're building up your connections, right? And it's cross-cultural connections that you're building. You know, we need to eat every single day, right? And there's times we have to prepare a meal to sustain our bodies every day. And when we do that with others and for others, there we go with connection, that builds up our serotonin and increases our happiness. Even when you have meals surrounded, even through loss, through someone who's died, through someone who's grieving, individuals can even join around food. So even, and the emotional time is not always positioned to something that should be built on happiness, it's that connection. So even in connecting through sorrow, you're still building up your serotonin. You know, we don't only have celebrations, you know, for times of trauma and for pain or anything like that. People find respite and some solace in preparing a meal together. Even if they're silent together side by side, you're connecting when you're cooking, you're coping, right? You're putting a task in hand to help you get through something. You're contributing, you're bringing something to others. This is like the fourth C, but it actually envelops all the C's: cooking. It's the ability to cook, prepare, and share. And that's where happiness lies. Again, it's not with the food and it's not with the eating, but it's in the preparation and the time spent together with someone, connecting, coping, contributing. So think about that next time. You may just want to dial in and get something. When you actually do something together in whatever short amount of time, you're really contributing and building those bonds. It's interesting because there's also some certain types of food that can increase your serotonin naturally. And usually one example is tryptophan. And tryptophan is found in flax, it's found in fish and seeds and nuts. So really organic, natural foods from the earth. Omega-3 fatty acids, soybeans, lentils, all natural foods. These foods help stabilize the neurons in our brain, so these neurons are less likely to die when the dopamine comes in and attacks. So when we focus on those four C's, along with the 7 components of what I spoke about earlier of happiness and pleasure, the key takeaways, what I'm sharing with you right now, are to really just embed this in much in your life. Now, when we go into what are we going to do as social workers, you're learning all these things. You're learning about social identity mapping, positionality, conflating pleasure and happiness. How do I then incorporate this into my work with clients? Well, our profession dictates that we utilize a strength-based perspective, right? And similarly, serotonin and happiness are grounded in strength-based. So even when consumers present to us with the trauma or with devastating personal issues and disorders, we still screen for strengths. But yet we also have to screen for happiness. Yet we might do it in a way that doesn't diminish the pain that they're experiencing. So how do I help screen for happiness when I'm working with somebody? I love tools. And the strength-based tools, I have a list of them right here in front of you, and they're also in the reference section of the PDF of the PowerPoint I uploaded. They have a lot of how-tos on how to attain happiness, but also you can transfer this information to your clients so you can go through it one by one. These are all grounded in evidence-based practice. They help elevate positive psychology of happiness. And I use these tools on myself first and foremost before I ever bring it into working with the client. So find the ones that speak to you. But one I'd like to share with you is just some mindful group activities that I love that you can do for adults. You know, we did the quick little mini mindful practice right now of the meditation, but there's also types of different kinesthetic practices which we can engage using our full body, and we can set it with purpose and intention, and even just breathing, just teaching someone how to just take that short breath. Even when you close your eyes and you just focus in through the nose and out through the mouth, breathe into your belly expands, and then breathe out as it gets smaller. This is how our body feels. And when we start to connect with our physical self cognitively, we then can step away from all the emotional trauma we are carrying up with us at that time. So even though some people might be like cross-legged right now, and some of you might be tapping your foot up and down, or playing with the pen, or going like this with your fingers, or your teeth might be grinding, whatever's going on, just pause for a second and scan your body and just adjust yourself just to be in a quiet, still state. And then you just want to notice how your body can just pause and just be in the moment. We have to also think about how we want to make sure that we're going to treat ourselves as a guest. We have new guests in our life or new people in our lives. We often treat them better than we ever treat anyone else around us, right? We want to make a good impression, and we want to just bring our whole self to them. But I want to remind everyone that you owe it to yourself to treat yourself as well as anybody around you. So even when you find yourself wandering, just bring your breath back in. And these different activities I have listed up here are a great idea of what you can do to help get yourself centered. Other type of wonderful tools that I found out there are self-care toolkits that are put out by different schools of social work. I'm sorry, I just realized my video's been off. I apologize. The self-care social work kits that I have published. One is through Rutgers School of Social Work, and one is through the University of Buffalo. And these links are active and they're great. There's multiple pages there of wonderful, up-to-date, different social work, self-care activities for you. So when you need any strength-based coping tools and practices, they are there. And they integrate it through the micro practices and the meso practices. It's all about giving. And as schools of social work, we are now giving and contributing to other forums. So that's something that we have to just turnkey over and keep going. Sharing how we practice what we preach is really key to help us going forward. So I want to say, like some of you might say, listen, Mary Beth, I've served on, I work with lots of consumers. I work closely with colleagues. I have numerous responsibilities. I need more time for formal exercise. I get that I have to sleep. I get that I have to connect. And I get that I need to have light in my life, but I really don't have time to do anything else physical. But I just want to share with you just 1 or 2 minutes in this chair where you are right now, or this desk, or even in your car when you're parked, can be transformative. Like other forms of exercise, sometimes seated yoga will help improve your mood and your confidence and relax you and dismiss any type of anxiety or depression that you might be feeling in the moment. So these traditional yoga poses can be replicated in a sitting position, stretches in the chair. And this makes chair yoga both suitable and enjoyable for individuals at all levels of experience. So just focus on your movements, your breathing, how your body reacts to this exercise. It helps reduce the stress and the mental clarity and builds up that serotonin. Once you begin practicing chair yoga, you'll feel a sense of ease and relaxation flow through your body. And over time, you'll notice that the tension that once overtook your muscles and joints begins to release. The basic tasks of your life are now possible once again. Just put in the chat, does anyone do any type of chair yoga or practice it right now? Is that part of their intention in their daily life? It's wonderful, wonderful opportunities, and even networking with each other. We can share these stories, and I hope you do find the solace in that today with speaking with each other. It's good. And remember to practice everything on ourselves first. So all the chair yoga you do on yourself, practice it first. All the type of meditation or the self-care exercises, practice it on yourself. But also with these scripts of guided meditation, there's wonderful opportunity for you to practice on yourself, setting a stage, setting a tone, setting just a serene environment. When your clients come in a heightened sense of anxiousness or just in a space where they just need to just relax and calm down, you already will know how to control your own breathing, how to choose your words and say them in a slow manner, in a very approachable manner, in a very calm manner, so that your client can then just try to get in and mirror and receive that calmness that you're emitting. And I just think that the best thing to do is to practice it on our own. So I want to be bold and ask somebody to unmute. And if somebody would like to volunteer to read the loving kindness meditation that I have up on the screen, I also threw the PDF in the chat earlier before I began. Somebody just wants to unmute and own it and read it and just take us through how you would host a guided meditation, doing the loving kindness meditation. And for the rest of us, just, close your eyes, ground your feet, sit in silence, and just receive what you're going to hear from this individual who's with us today. So we have, about 20 people with us now. I'll pause to have someone unmute and jump in and read the script for us, if you don't mind. We have some extroverts here. Come on. Or if we have an introvert who wants to give it a go. Thank you.
Meditation.
Thank you.
May I be healthy and strong. May I be safe and protected. May I be peaceful and free from mental, emotional, and physical suffering. May I be happy and joyful. May I be patient and understanding. May I be loving, kind, compassionate, and gentle in many ways. May I be courageous in dealing with difficulties and always meet with success. May I be diligent and committed to my meditation practices and to helping others along their spiritual path. May my true nature shine through and on all beings I encounter.
That was wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know your voice resonated with me, and the words really came across clear, concise, and with so much authenticity. How was it for you to read it? Did anything resonate with you? And thank you so much.
Yes, it was invigorating. Try to internalize these chants, these aphorisms,
Yeah.
and just try to embrace and visualize being in those spaces. So.
Thank you. And it's words, but the way you said them, the way they're formulated, the way you just came across meant so much. It's nothing that you can translate to any other type of pleasurable activity. We just connected right now just with words and just on the Zoom, and it really just is bringing serotonin and bringing happiness. I hope you feel it as much as everyone else here does. And thank you so very much for volunteering to read that. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. So I can't believe almost an hour has gone by. I feel like we just started a few minutes ago, but I want to just in closing, just talk about the key aspects of mindfulness. And the biggest one that stands out for myself is gratitude. It's setting an intention towards being gracious. I'm making a mental note. I'm thanking myself and those around me, the higher beings in the universe for this moment that I'm in right now. And even when you do mindfulness gratitude lists, you can add in list of our abilities, that we're actually able to walk here. If we can walk here with our legs and our hands and our vision and our hearing, we don't take these things for granted every day. We can navigate our bodies, our appendages, our senses, our organs, our sight, our ability to eat and swallow, we move physically with agility that each one of us has at our own level. This is something to be so grateful for. And we remind ourselves that of these items, the people and abilities that we possess, it's this conscious attention to gratitude that can distract us from any negative thoughts or any negative self-talk that we would traditionally jump in and just filter our minds with. So I'm hoping that everyone can make a mental note and choose to have their own gratitude list and just, review it once a day. You can start with one item. And then as your practice grows, you have more contemplation of gratitude, this will evolve. Practice gratitude is an act that will increase our serotonin, thus thus placing us towards a desirable state of happiness. I'm a realist. I know that every moment in life will not be pleasurable and or happy, but when we prepare ourselves to strengthen our resolve and practice strength-based coping strategies, and then when we do encounter those bleak, traumatic, depressing, anxiety-ridden, and devastating losses that happen to everybody, each and every day, when we practice positivity, this better prepares our emotional core to withstand what we're experiencing, all these negative experiences, while striving to counter the effects of this negativity through positivity. So through our experiences and our practices, we'll be able to come back to a better time and space and not just be in such a dark space over and over and over again. So I just hope that everyone can first explore themselves through the social identity mapping tool, through positionality, and then also practice mindfulness, meditation, while being mindful of the behaviors that contribute to happiness. Those are the recommendations that I have for you today when you want to place yourself, SELF, first in your self-care journey. This is just preventative care and something I hope that we all look forward to achieving because we all can. So I just want to thank everybody for today. And thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary Beth. It was someone just wrote in the chat, it was so enlightening and just self-empowering and nurturing. And I have to say, I was just sitting here and I was like, your voice is just so soothing that it just makes it easy to sit and take this in.
Yes,
So
sweet.
this is
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you so much.
My
So
pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
yes, I'm going to stop our recording
Okay.
here. I don't know if Mary Beth has a couple of seconds, if anyone wants to if you have a question or anything.
Hi, Dory.